Bhagavatam, Canto 2nd, Chapter 3. Bhagavatam is the answer to all question. Try to understand. Shlok Kramanka 22. 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam
Narayanam
Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Namaskrityam
Devim
Devim
Saraswati
Saraswati
Vyasam
Vyasam
Tatah
Tato Jayam
Jayamudire
Udire
Nashtaprayeshu
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata
Bhagavata
Sevaya
Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama
Bhagavati
Shloke Bhaktir
Samashloke
Bhavati
Bhaktir
Nashtam.
Bhakti. Hare Krishna. Shlok Kramanka 22-22. नासिके निरभिद्यतां दोधूयति नभस्वति
नासिके निरभिद्यतां दोधूयति नभस्वती
तत्र वायुः गन्धवः घ्राणः नसि जिगृक्षतः
तत्र वायुः गन्धवहो घ्राणुः नसी जिघृषतः
यदा आत्मनि निरालोकम् आत्मानं च दिदृक्षतः
यत् आत्मनि निरालोकम् आत्मानं च दिदृक्षत
निर्भिन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुः गुणग्रहः
निर्भिन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुगुणग्रह
बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिः आत्मना तच्चिगृक्षतः
बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिः आत्मनः तत् जिघृक्षतः
कर्णौ च निर्भिद्येतां दिशः श्रोत्रं गुणग्रहः
कर्णौ च निर्भिद्यतां दिश श्रोत्रुं गुणग्रह
नासिके निर्भिद्येतां दोदोयति नभस्वति
नासिके निर्भिद्यतां दोधूयति नभस्वती
तत्र वायुः गन्धवः घ्राणः नसि जिगृक्षतः
तत्र वायुः गन्धवः घ्राणः नसी जिगृक्षतः
यदा आत्मनि निरालोकम् आत्मानं च दिदुक्षतः
यदा आत्मनि निर्लोक आत्मानं च दिदृक्षतः
निर्विन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुगुणग्रहः
निर्भिन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुनि गुणग्रह
बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिमना तत्
बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिः आत्मनः तज्जिगृक्षतः
कर्णौ च निर्विद्येतां दिशः श्रोत्रं गुणग्रहः
कर्णौ च निर्भिद्यतां दिश श्रोत्रं गुणग्रह
नासिके निर्विद्येतां दोदोयति नभस्वति तत्र वायुः गन्धवः घ्राणः नसि जिगृक्षतः यदा आत्मनि निरालोकम् आत्मानं च दिदृक्षतः निर्विन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुगुणग्रहः बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिः आत्मनः तज्जिगृक्षतः कर्णौ च निर्विद्येतां दिशः श्रोत्रं गुणग्रहः
नासिके
हरे कृष्ण
निर्विदेतां दोधयति नभस्वती तत्र वायुगन्धवोः घ्राणः नसी जिगृक्षतः यदा आत्मनि निरालोकम् आत्मानं च दिदृक्षत निर्भिन्ने हि अक्षिणी तस्य ज्योतिः चक्षुगुणग्रह बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिः आत्मनः तज्जिगृक्षतः कर्णौ च निर्भिद्येतां दिश श्रोत्रं गुणग्रह
Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter, when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated. The nasal instrument and odors came into existence, and the to see himself and all that was created. then the eyes, the illuminating God sun, the power of vision, the ear, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desire to hear about the same. Purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Manifested simultaneously when the Lord desired to smell. The Vedic mantras confirm this statement in the Upaniṣads statement that everything is the first desire and act upon it. The living entity can see only when the Lord sees. The living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the independently. This independent in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, but the thinking can be given shape by the grace of the Lord, and therefore the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. The whole explanation is on the subject of the level with God must prove themselves to be absolute and independent, and then they must substantiate their claim to being one with God. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total explanation is total creation is called tamas or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe. For then, one cannot see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself and all the creation as well. And thus the sun became manifested, the power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by advancement of knowledge, one should try to know that about the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum of everything. Knowledge does not mean knowledge only of the laws of the nature or physical knowledge, which are working by the direction of the Lord. The scientists are eager to hear about the physical laws working in material nature. They are eager on other planets, but they should know that the power of hearing and the instrument for hearing were given to them by the Lord of hearing about the self or about the Lord. Unfortunately, the power of hearing is misused in hearing the vibrations of mundane affairs. The great sages were interested in hearing about the Lord through Vedic knowledge and nothing more. That is the beginning of oral reception of knowledge. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवान् च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिते नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Jai Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Today we continuing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2nd, Chapter 10, and we try to understand the Shloka Kramanka 22-22. In this shlokas, they describing about the gods manifested as the virāṭ-puruṣas thought of drink and eating, how the mouth existed, and then talu, vagare, all things are existed before we heard the 2-3 shlokas. Now in the shlokas, here they're describing about the hearing instruments, and um, Prabhuji will tell us in nicely. Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji, for a wonderful, what I would say, addition to this topic, which is making us aware that man proposes, but it's God who disposes, and how everything is finally dependent upon the will of the God, whether it is hearing, whether it is vision, everything is having dependence on something. So in continuation to the discussions that we had yesterday about how various sensory powers, the objects controlling deities, they have emanated from the Supreme Lord, the virāṭ-puruṣa, the discussion continues, and what we are told today is that through his desire alone, the power of smell, the sight, the hearing, all they appeared. So profound spiritual principle comes into picture, that all sensory and cognitive functions exist only by the desire of the Supreme Lord. Living beings, they act under the illusion of independence, but in reality, their every function, for breathing, thinking, everything depends on the Supreme Person, Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So the discussion starts with the desire to smell, where absolute dependence again gets proven. The divine desire is the cause. The Upanishads confirm that everything comes into being only after the Lord first desires it. So when the Lord desired to smell, simultaneously the nostrils, the act of breathing, the air carrying fragrance, the deity presiding over smell, all manifested. So creation is not mechanical, it is volitional, governed by the Lord's conscious will. And that is where the dependence of the living entity comes into picture. We cannot do anything independently. The living entity may think of acting independently, but he cannot act without divine sanction. And that is why the essence, man proposes, God disposes. Our capacity to desire is itself given by the Lord. But whether those desires are fulfilled or not, it depends entirely on his will. But the problem arises because of our false ego and the misuse of independence. The less intelligent persons, they claim equality with God, but to do so, one must prove that he is absolute and independent. No living being actually can exist or act independently even for a moment. Our thinking, our breathing, our seeing, our hearing, everything depends on Krishna's sanction. And this realization humbles the devotee and fills his heart with gratitude for every breath, every perception is a gift of divine mercy. And Govinda, He is the true object of the senses. Arjuna actually addressed Krishna as Govinda, meaning he who gives pleasure to the senses and to the cows. However, Krishna is not meant to satisfy our senses. Rather, our senses are meant to satisfy him. Rishikena, Rishikeshase. If we try to enjoy independently, we become bound by karma and limitations. But when we engage the senses of Govinda for his pleasure, our own senses automatically become satisfied. Hence, the secret of happiness is not self-centered enjoyment, but devotional engagement, serving the source of all pleasure. So it is important that we understand the law of desire and karma. Every desire we have cannot be fulfilled because karma determines our eligibility. The Lord fulfills our desires according to what we deserve, not what we demand. Yet, if we give up selfish desires and desire only Krishna's satisfaction, there is no limit to what Krishna can grant. Selfish desire binds us, and desire to please Krishna liberates us. So the real freedom is serving God's plan. People try to find happiness through social, political revolutions. But history repeatedly shows that no external arrangement can remove human sufferings. In Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Krishna himself says, this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. So, such genuine, direct explanation which Krishna has given, and we still try to look here and there. But Krishna is saying, Devisha gunamayi mama maya duratya mam eva ye prapadyante maya metam karati. So freedom from suffering does not come from political or material progress. It comes from spiritual surrender. So whether foreign rule or independence, both are temporary conditions within Maya. Only Krishna consciousness brings permanent peace because it aligns our desires with the Lord Supreme. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. And look at the desire to see the light in the darkness. Here it is mentioned that when everything existed in darkness, Krishna desired to see himself and all that was created. And so the eyes, the illuminating sun god, the power of vision, and the objects of sight all became manifested. So it is Lord's compassion which creates light. The natural condition of the material universe is tama, dense darkness. Out of his causeless mercy, the Lord desires to see, and immediately the sun and the faculty of vision appear. Because the Lord desired to see, all living beings were given the power to see. Thus, the Lord's own seeing enables our seeing. He is the original seer. Our very perception of reality depends on his desire. Without Krishna's will, there is no light, no vision, no awareness. We can explain this with a spiritual parallel. Just as the Lord's desire brings illumination to the physical world, his mercy brings illumination to our hearts. So when Krishna desires that we see, spiritual understanding awakens. And that awakening is Krishna consciousness, the opening of our inner eyes. Otherwise, in ignorance, The soul lives in darkness, unable to see its true self. When the Lord's grace descends through the words of the Guru and the scriptures, the darkness of ignorance is dispelled. Om Tamso Mahajyotirgamaya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And it is not that everything comes automatically. Everything is planned and everything gets executed after Krishna desires. So after smell and the sight, Krishna wants to hear. He has the desire to hear. And there lies the beginning of the divine knowledge. So the development of the desire of the great sages to know, to fulfill that, the ears, the power of hearing, and the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. Because the great sages desired to hear about Krishna, the self. Hearing, the power of knowledge, and the deity controlling all manifested by the desire of the sages. What is important is to understand that behind this origin of hearing, the desire that they have. And what did they desire to hear? Not politics, not gossip, not worldly knowledge. They desire to hear about Krishna, about the self, the Atma. Hence, the audiovisual creation we see in the modern world has its divine origin in the desire for spiritual hearing. The ear was given to the soul for hearing about God, not for mundane sound vibrations. But what we see is the misuse of the power of hearing. Modern civilization, it misuses this sacred gift. We have radios, we have televisions, we have mobiles, endless entertainment, but very little inclination to hear transcendental sound. The sages, however, engage their hearing only in Shravanam, the hearing of Vedic truths, the first and most essential limb of the devotional service. In fact, in the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 26 shloka, Krishna talks very clearly when he says, Shrotrani Indriyani Annisamyam Agnishu Johyati Shabdadi Anvishyad Anya Indriya Agnishu Joyati. So what it means that sacrifice the hearing process in the fire of mental control. A true brahmachari uses his hearing only for Krishna Katha. He avoids mundane sounds and immerses his ears in Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So hearing is the beginning of knowledge, both materially and spiritually. Even a child learns by hearing. And similarly, one attains spiritual knowledge by hearing from a bona fide authority. Hearing acts like a nectar. Even Arjuna, when he wants to know more in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he requests Krishna, Vistarena Atmana Yogam Vibhutim Cha Janardana Bhuya Kathaya Truptihi Shrunvato nasti me amrutam. Janardhan, please describe your glories again and again. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I relish the nectar of your words. Even the sages of Naimisharanya, we have seen in the first canto, first chapter, 19 shloka, saying that one can never be satiated while hearing the pastimes of Krishna glorified by excellent prayers. And those who developed a relationship with him relish this nectar at every step. Mundane stories become boring with repetition, but pastimes of Krishna, eternally fresh, ever increasing in sweetness. Hearing them purifies the heart and connects us directly with them. And that is one of the first stages of the or the types of the Navvidha, the Shravana. So it indirectly shows the power of bhakti over all the other parts of devotional service. Like in the 12th chapter, is clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 6-7 shloka. Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matpara annena eva yogenma dhyayanta upasate tesham aham samuddarta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami cha chirat partha mayyaveshi chetasam. To those who worship me with full devotion, meditating upon me, I personally delivered them from the ocean of birth. This is Krishna's guarantee. The devotee does not have to struggle by complex yoga or austerity. Krishna himself lifts the devotee from material existence, just like a parent lifts a child from danger. So simply by hearing and chanting the holy names, one reaches the supreme destination happily, easily. And this is the living reality of devotion. A devotee lives in Krishna from the very beginning of his practice. When he chants, Krishna dances on his tongue. When he offers food, Krishna personally accepts it. When he eats prasad, it becomes spiritualized, Krishnaized. This is not imagination, it is confirmed in the 8th shloka of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, if you fix your mind upon me, engage your intelligence in me, you will live in me always. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord, they are not different. So the process of hearing and chanting is direct association with Krishna. And that is why Prabhupada used to say that this is a social application. Hearing is a tool for peace. It can transform society. If used properly for spiritual knowledge, it can bring about peace, happiness, and goodness. When people hear about Krishna, they rise from ignorance to enlightenment, from misery to harmony. And this is the vision behind Day0186, organizing society so that everyone hears about God and acts in his service. This alone can reform the world from suffering to real happiness. So the essence of the shlokas, when the living entity aligns his will with Lord's will, he experiences real freedom. Freedom not from authority, but from illusion. The senses are sacred gifts meant for serving Krishna. Man proposes, but only when God disposes, life becomes perfect. Hare Krishna.